So today, first of all, I'd just like to say it's always an honor and a privilege to be asked to come and speak at the healing services. It's always so enjoyable, and I pray people get something from what any of the speakers say, but I know myself as one of that comes here, I get something out of it every time myself. But today in the Gospels, we hear about two men that are kind of stuck in a problem. But there's quite a bit of difference in what the two of them are facing. Now, I have to say a little disclaimer. What I'm going to share today is based on a Bible study we're doing at St. John's in Delhi, and it's called You're Never Alone, and it's by Max Lucado. So some of these thoughts are things that he's wrote. But God really put it on my heart to talk about this today. So these two men have these problems, and they're stuck. Has anyone here ever they felt that they're stuck in a problem in their life? Maybe it's yeah, I think we could probably all raise our hands for that, right? But, it could be a health issue. It could be a dead-end job. It could be money problems. We get stuck in problems, right? And what are we going to do about it? Well, in the first part of the gospel today, we hear about this court official of Herod that has a very sick boy. Now, this man's done everything in his power to heal his son. He spent money on people to come and take care of him and try to cure him, and nothing is working. He's feeling stuck. What is he going to do? Now, he lives in Capernaum, and he hears that Jesus is in Cana. Well, not too long ago, Jesus had done something pretty marvelous. He took some water and made some pretty tasty wine out of it, right? So people were starting to think about this guy. What is he? Who is he? And what can he do? And this official says, Jesus is in Cana again. It's a ways away from here, but maybe, just maybe, if I go to him and plead with him and beg to him to come and see my son, maybe he'll come and heal him. I hear he can do that. So he takes this trek. It's about 18 miles. And, to us, that's nothing, right? I drove a lot more than that to get here. But 18 miles in that day was a major trip. And he had to leave his sick boy. He had to leave his family, his household, all the people that were there taking care of his sick son. And he didn't know when he left, I'm sure, he was probably thinking in his mind, will I get to Jesus in time? Will he help? Will my son be alive when I come back? But he makes this trek. And he finds Jesus, and he begs him, come with me back to Capernaum and heal my son. And does Jesus say to him, well, gee, okay, let me grab my bag and we'll be on our way? He says, no, go. Go. Your son will be well. Well, I'm sure this guy's thinking to himself, I really need him to come and see my son. I really need him to lay hands on him. I need to see him, pray over him that he would get better. But all Jesus says to him is go. I mean, if you and I come to Jesus in our prayer time with urgent issues, and he just says, go, how are we going to feel? But he says to this man, go, your son will be well. That man had to have faith as big as a mountain, right? To be able to take that step and leave the one man he felt could probably do something for his son and head home, because that's what the man told him to do. That first step was probably terribly hard to take, along with the subsequent steps. But he does what Jesus says. He turns, he leaves, he starts the trek back home, not knowing what he would find. And on the way home, what happens? His servants come to him and say, your son is well. And he asks them, when did it happen? And they said around noontime, basically. And the man realizes that's exactly when Jesus said, go, your son will be well. And this man believed. He believed then and there that Jesus was the real thing. Jesus was the real thing, and he would honor your requests. And he went home, and not only was his boy healed, but he and his whole family believed. Now, when you think back to that first miracle Jesus did in Cana with the wine, you know, he didn't just make a few glasses of wine that could help the people get through the meal maybe they were at, but he made gallons and gallons of the best wine they had, right? He gave them an abundance. Jesus is into answering our prayers and providing us an abundance of blessings when we open our eyes and our hearts and our being to him and to what he is giving us. You see, the healing of that little boy was a miracle, but it was a temporary healing. He would die again. But the healing that came upon that boy and that man and the whole family when they believed in Jesus and who he was an everlasting miracle, an everlasting healing. They had, from then on, salvation. They could be with God for all eternity. That's a permanent blessing, a permanent miracle, an abundant miracle. So it wasn't just the immediate healing of the boy that was at hand. Jesus had bigger things in mind. He wanted to win souls for the kingdom. And he did. That man was stuck because he had a desperately sick boy and he didn't know what to do. But he made a desperate effort to turn to Jesus. And he got a wonderful answer. Now let's move on to the second man, the man that's at the pool in Bethesda. He's been sick for 38 years, paralyzed, not being able to move, laying by that pool day in and day out, and never able to get into the stirred up water that supposedly had healing powers. And Jesus walks into this area where all these people are gathered that are sick and are trying to get into this water. And he focuses on this paralyzed man. And he looks at the paralyzed man. And does he say, I am so sorry you've been sick and paralyzed for 38 years. Let me help you. Did he say that? No. He said, do you want to be well? Well, think about it. Think about that statement. If you go to Jesus, and we all have, we don't feel well, please heal me. Do you really expect him to ask you, do you want to get well? Hey, I just asked for that, right? But he says to this man, do you want to get well? This man has been stuck in a problem as well, right? He's been stuck next to this pool for 38 years, not being able to move because he was paralyzed. But think about it. Do you think maybe even though at the beginning he wanted to be healed, and he still wants to be healed, but he's kind of got comfortable in his stuckness, right? Comfortable in being stuck. You know, he was probably living the life of a beggar. He probably had a tin can, as so many of them did there, and collect coins from people. And he was able to feed himself day in and day out with what he collected. Maybe he became comfortable in the problem he was stuck in. So Jesus asked him, do you really want to get well? You know, if I do something for you and you're healed, your life's going to change. Are we always ready for what our life is going to be when we ask Jesus for healing? Do we really want to get well? Do we really want to get out of the problem we're stuck in? Maybe we're in that dead-end job that you hate. You dread getting up every morning and going to work, but it pays the bills. You have food on the table. You're kind of inwardly miserable, but the bills are paid, the food's on the table. Do I really want to take the chance to make a change? Do I want Jesus to give me an opportunity for a different, exciting job I may love, but maybe it won't pay the bills? Maybe I won't eat. Do we really want the healing that Jesus is going to give us? Well, this man says yes, and Jesus does heal him. He says, pick up your mat and walk. I like the reading today, pick up your bed. Doesn't that a bigger image, like, hey, let me get this big bed and walk away with it. But, pick up your mat and walk. Jesus is telling them, first of all, if you want to be better, you've got to be a participant. You've got to take the first step. I can heal your legs, heal your body, but if you never take a step, you're going to still be stuck right here. You've got to break away from the past. You've got to be willing to move into a new future. You have to break away from the past, be willing to move into a new future. These are scary things for this man. A lot of times it's scary things for you and I when we ask Jesus for help, not knowing exactly the road we're going to head down. But we need to know that Jesus is always with us. He will never leave us or forsake us. We need to remember the phrase, I have plans for you, plans that will benefit you, not harm you. Jesus will always be with us, even if it is scary. See, this man, again, had the immediate healing of his physical problem. But Jesus didn't leave it there, did he? When he found the man later, what did he say to him? He said, sin no more so that something worse doesn't happen to you. You see, if we go back into our same old habits, our same old lifestyle, we're going to get back right in the same old rut and be stuck again, and maybe even be worse than we were before. So we really have to be aware of what Jesus is doing for us. Be willing to be a participant. When we come for healing prayer, we need to be willing to be a participant as well as the one receiving prayer. We need to pray with anticipation and expectation that God will do something for us. If we say, hey, God, would you think about maybe kind of doing something for me? He's probably going to say, do you really want it? Right? Do you really want it? But pray with expectancy, anticipation. Yes, Christ will do something for you. And be willing to make the change in your life that Jesus wants you to make. Because we can all do better, no matter who we are. We're all sinners, and we can all do better for Christ and for His kingdom. But we need to be willing to do it. Now, when Deacon Marion asked for testimonies, I didn't get up and give one because the end of my talk is going to be a little testimony. But, I was kind of stuck too, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my calling to St. John's in Delhi and St. Peter's in Hobart, the churches I'm currently rector of. For 10 years, I'd been working for the State University of New York in Canton. I managed the non-credit programs on the campus, and I was a part-time priest at a little church in Waddington, New York, St. Paul's. It was not a very lively congregation. Most of the folks were, as unfortunately most of us know in our churches, we have an aged congregation. And over the 10 years I was there, I buried about 3 times the number of people that our average Sunday attendance is. So I was feeling kind of stuck. I really felt God was saying to me, I want you to be in permanent and full-time ministry. But I had a good job with the state of New York. It was paying well. It was certainly paying the bills because the church couldn't pay me. I did live in the rectory, but they couldn't afford to pay anything. But I kept having this nagging feeling that God was saying, Art, it's time to do something else. Well, I started my career at the State University late in life. I hadn't quite been there 10 years, and to retire and to keep health insurance, which is a pretty important thing nowadays, I had to have 10 years in. And as I got to that point where it was close to the 10-year time period, I needed to buy back some service time because I didn't start the retirement plan as soon as I started at the college. I had about 1.5 years of time that I needed to buy back. Well, try to contact the state in good times. I needed to contact the state in the middle of COVID-19 pandemic and say, how do I work out buying back this time and being able to retire? And they said, oh, well, you can submit a form, but we're currently on an 18-month backlog before we'll even talk to you about it. So I go talk to our HR department, and they go, well, we're told that if you actually apply for retirement, they'll move you to the top of the stack. So I'd been praying to God about what I'd do, and when I first started this process, my wife Tammy was going to the post office one day because we were going to make a trip down to my son in Delmar for the weekend, and we needed a check that she was expecting in the mail for the trip. And on the way to the post office, she was praying, and she says, God, I pray that that check's there because we really want to go visit our son and the grandkids. And he lives in Delmar. Well, she said, I heard very audibly in my mind God saying, don't worry, Tammy, you're going to go to Delhi. Well, if you know my wife, she likes to argue with even God. She says, God, I said Delmar, not Delhi. What are you talking about? And she said, I heard it a second time. Tammy, don't worry, you're going to Delhi. So she came home and told me that. I said, Tammy, I can't apply to that church right now. I don't even know if I can retire. This was before I'd really started that process. And she says, well, it was pretty straightforward. I think it's something you need to do. Well, I kind of looked into it a little bit, and I knew that it didn't seem like the timing was going to work out. I didn't think I was going to get the retirement settled. So I said to her, I don't think we can apply. And then I found that a best friend of mine applied to that church, and I didn't want to be in competition with him. So I said, I guess it really wasn't right. Maybe God has plans for us, but we just didn't hear the message right. She kept saying, oh, I heard it right. So anyways, this was about almost 2 years ago now. So I let it go. I figured they were going to pick a priest. And lo and behold, I hear from my best friend that he never got an offer. And I said, well, what's going on? He goes, well, I don't know. I was in the finalists, but they didn't pick anybody. And he says, so I guess they're starting the process all over again. Tammy goes, you need to apply. So I started that dreaded profile online. Any of the clergy here knows what that is, to fill that out. I filled it out, and I went to the HR department, and I said, I really need to get an answer on this retirement. And they said, well, we're working on it. And I called the state, and they said, well, you haven't met your 18-month time period yet. And by the way, now that COVID hit, we're really backlogged 24 months. So I said, but I need to listen to God. Like those guys in the gospel today, I needed to listen to God. I said, if it's really what God wants, it'll all work out. So I filled out the application. I submitted it. It was only a week after I'd submitted the profile online and told our transitions officer, Mother Elizabeth, that I was interested, that I get a call from the search committee. They go, we've read over your profile. We'd really like to talk to you. When could you come? Could you come maybe later this week? I said, well, I might be able to come on the week, not this first Saturday, but the following Saturday. They go, okay, come on down. So, and this was after an online interview. With the online interview, they said, we'll get back to you in 2 weeks. They called me back the next day. Let's make the in-person interview. I get down for the in-person interview. We have a wonderful day talking with the vestry of both churches. And I said to him at the end of the day, I says, so what's the time period? When are you going to make a decision? Am I in the running? They go, well, we'll get back to you in a couple of weeks. So again, my son's place in Delmar is always our stopover. We decided to go that Sunday morning up to Delmar and go to church with him. And we're sitting at his house for brunch at Sunday afternoon. and my cell phone rings, and it's the head of the search committee, and she goes, I just wanted to tell you that both vestries unanimously voted to call you as our next director. So, I mean, God just went pow, 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 pow. Everything fell in place, right? I had to listen to God. And the fight with the state and the retirement didn't end there, but it continued, but it did finally work out. I got my retirement settled. I got my health insurance covered. You see, God had a plan, but I had to be willing to step forward in that plan and be part of it, even though I was scared. Even though I was comfortable in the job, I knew it was time to change. I could feel it, but I was comfortable. I didn't really want to risk a good, solid income, health insurance, losing the retirement. But when I finally made the decision to leave and said I was retiring because the retirement system couldn't confirm all they had to confirm, I basically had to just resign from the college, hoping that this would all fall in place in the end. But it wasn't just hope. It was faith in God that I was doing what he wanted. See, in these two people that were stuck in the gospel readings today, it was their faith in God, knowing that they needed to do what they were being directed to do. The one man had to make that journey. He had to trust in what Jesus said, to just go home without any spectacular incantation or words or laying on of hands or anything. Just go home. He'll be okay. He had to be willing to accept what God had in mind. The man at the pool had to be willing to get up, pick up his bed, and walk and be part of the plan that Jesus had for him and not go back into the same old lifestyle. Don't sin anymore. Make the opening in your life so Jesus can make the changes in your life that he wants to do. When people talk to me about issues in their lives, I say, you know, a lot of us might feel the things in our lives are sinful and we need to stop them, but we're only going to make the change when we let Jesus into our life and let him make the changes within us that needs to be made. I can't tell you you've got to change this as your priest. You know, your friend can't tell you you've got to change it. We can say we don't think it's good for you. We feel it's a bad situation. We can even tell them we feel it's sinful. But they've got to make the decision to let Jesus into their life to make the change. Those two men had to make the decision to let Jesus into their lives, to make the healing that needed to be made, to make the changes that needed to be made. And you and I need to do the same thing. We need to be willing to be participants. We need to be willing to pray expectantly, expecting that God will do something in our lives, because he will. And sometimes it's just a little bit scary, but he'll always be with us, and he'll never leave us. You know, we can remember the words at the beginning of Psalm 46. God is our refuge and strength and ever present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea. Though the waters roar and foam, the mountains quake with their singing. Even though all those things are happening, God is our refuge and our strength and ever present help in trouble. He'll always be there for us if we ask him, keeping in mind that he knows what is right for us, sometimes even better than we do. And the answer we get may sometimes be a surprise, but it is an answer to our prayers. I always like to, when I'm talking about that, remind people of the country song by Garth Brooks. Some of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers. But I always say it's not that they're not unanswered, they're just answered in a different way. Because he met his old fling at the county fair, and he realized, I'm sure glad God didn't answer that prayer, because he was much more happy with the lady he was with now. Okay? So we've got to keep this in mind. God knows what is right for us. And when we pray, he will answer. He will always answer our prayers. But it may not be exactly the way we expect it. But it'll be for our benefit and our good. And we have to be willing to be part of it. Amen.